Well, good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. And maybe there's some advantages of it being some colder weather out here and out west. Is everybody, of course, on a Friday have would just love to attend workshops, and so here we are for your professional entertainment and information. We're going to provide you with, I think, a very interesting presentation. And I think it's going to be very interesting in the sense that we've kind of given you the whole scope of, sort of layers, if you will, of what the Connector program is about from a national perspective, right down to a local example in terms of an urban one, at least. And then we've got an amazing best practice that we have that comes to us from outside of those urban areas in sort of the small centers. So I think you're going to get a very interesting array of experiences, and hopefully you'll find it intriguing and perhaps attractive for you to consider in the future. And when it comes to, there's a number of different ways of doing mentorship. And so, Connector is a variation on that model, and I think you'll find it very interesting. So I've got a few words and welcomes that I have to provide you with this morning. So I'll just go to that, and then we'll carry on with the panel that we have for you today. Just hold on. So today's panelists, we have Alida Campbell, National Connector Program Director, and we've got Kariem Reda from ERIEC, who runs our Connector Program here in the Edmonton region. And Glenys Reeves-Gibbs, who, as I mentioned before, is a firefly of sorts and on the ground in Lloydminster, and is doing some amazing things in Lloydminster. And she's got some things that she's going to share with us today. So the land acknowledgements, well, first of all, I'd like to acknowledge that this workshop is in part of the Alberta Mentorship Program, the AMP initiative. And we are grateful that AMP is made possible with the support from the government of Alberta. And so our land acknowledgement this morning will be that, at least from where we're hosting, Edmonton. Edmonton is located within Treaty 6 territory and within the Métis homelands and Métis Nation of Alberta Region 4. We acknowledge this land as the traditional territories of many First Nations, such as the Niihau, Cree, the Dene, Nakota Sioux, Stoney, Anishinaabe, Saulteaux, and Niitsitapi, Blackfoot. The city of Edmonton owes its strength and vibrancy to these lands and the diverse Indigenous peoples whose ancestors' footsteps have marked this territory, as well as settlers from around the world who continue to be welcomed here and call Edmonton, and I will say as well, Alberta home. And hopefully if there's anybody from outside of Alberta, the world, their home. In Canada, 35 communities have a Connector program that supports newcomers and builds career connections. In our panel discussion, we will be looking at how networking and the Connector program bridge the gap between newcomers and employers. Secondly, the benefits that can arise from the Connector event for newcomers, employers, and stakeholders. And thirdly, how mentoring and Connector programs support career transition and workforce development outcomes. And then the last point that we'll hopefully cover this morning is how elements of these programs can be used to start up new programs with a focus on our emerging program here in Lloydminster. So again, we're grateful to AMP and grateful to the Government of Alberta for providing us with the support in order to get this information all out to you. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a quick bio on each of our panel members. Alida Campbell, who's certainly I called her director, but she's the manager of the National Connector Program, is somebody that we've known for quite a few years, and so she's a good friend and colleague, but also is a very adept manager of this national program. Alida focuses on training, supporting, and developing resources for all connector communities across Canada and internationally. Her focus is always on creating community, encouraging open communication, and cheering all of the coordinators who do amazing work. Originally from Ontario, she now calls Nova Scotia home. She holds a BA in anthropology and a master's in international development. She's a proud Rotarian, so Glenys, there you go. She's a colleague beyond mentorship, but also as a fellow Rotarian. She facilitates the training and orientation for all youth exchanges in District 7815. Our second panelist is Kariem Reda. He's our Connector Program Coordinator here at ERIEC. Kariem is an accomplished professional with a master's in business from Manchester and experience in marketing and management, project coordination, and student representation in his previous work across various cultural landscapes. Kariem possesses a very unique blend of skills, experience, and passion in connecting international professionals with local businesses. As a new immigrant to Canada with international qualifications, Kariem intimately understands the challenges of entering the Canadian job market and is driven by a strong desire to help others overcome obstacles and achieve their goals, making him a compassionate and driven advocate for newcomers. And Kariem has been with us like a few months now, but he's been a welcome member of our team, and really happy to have him on board. Glenys Reeves-Gibbs is a longtime community leader in Lloydminster. Among many of her community building initiatives, she was the executive director for a local business incubator to provide mentorships for local entrepreneurs, which put her in good qualifications for the work that she's currently doing under the AMP umbrella. She also led Project Gazelle, a program to support women, newcomers, and Canadian-born interested in entrepreneurship to build their businesses. She has also worked on an initiative for Saskatchewan Health to support recruitment and retention of physicians and health professionals, including mentoring new healthcare professionals and nursing students to transition from student to healthcare provider. Working with the Lloydminster Local Immigration Partnership on several initiatives, Glenys is working with the AMP team to launch a career mentoring program in Lloydminster. So that is your panel for this morning. You can see there's quite a pedigree that we have and a real broad range of experience. Yeah, I'm going to throw it back to you, Cheryl, and we can start this morning's workshop.
Okay, great. Thanks, Doug. Yeah, we're thrilled to have three entirely different perspectives talking about the same topic. So, I'll start with you, Alida, and I would just say to everyone, feel free if you have questions to throw them in the chat. I think our panelists are also okay if you want to sort of raise your electronic hand to ask a question. We'll certainly have time after we run through a couple rounds of questions to take your question as well. So, don't be shy about that. But yeah, Alida, since you're coming from a national connector program perspective, could you talk about how you find networking and the connector program and how it uses networking really bridge the gap between newcomers and employers?
Sure. So I'll talk from a more of a general perspective, and then I'll let Kariem go in and onto the minutia. So the Connector program is what we like to call an intentional networking program. So instead of just going to a networking event where everyone has their wine and their cheese and then struggles to shake hands when they have their wine and their cheese, intentional networking really helps you curate where you want to go and what you want to do. And Connector programs really do work with you to make sure that we can give you the best of that world. So if you're in IT, we're going to match you with someone who's in IT. If you're in banking, or if you're interested in a certain industry, we're going to match you with someone in that industry. And so that takes that sort of guesswork or that awkwardness of the networking out and puts you right where you want to be. So it helps you reach those goals because we're taking out all of those middle steps of you trying to meet those people and maybe not being able to. It's also designed to really build your professional network from the right place. So making sure that we're matching you with people that can help you achieve your goals, that can help you meet the right people. So making sure that we really understand or connector coordinators really understand, what are you reaching for? Who do you want to meet? It's not just someone's coming in and saying, I want to meet with this person. We're going to pry a little bit. We're going to ask those questions and we're going to find out what's best for you in the area, or whatever community you find yourself in. I know that we all know that as newcomers, or at least I don't know this, but I see it all the time. As newcomers, it can be difficult to know who to reach out to. You're in a new place, you're in a new city. There's a lot of small to medium businesses out there, and the TD Banks and the Googles, but you don't know all of those other places that really are beneficial for you, and the employers don't know you exist either. And so that's what the connector program does, is it makes that marriage, or it brings those people together that otherwise wouldn't have found each other. So it's not just that the newcomer goes into a new place and goes, oh, what do I do? How do I reach out to people? But it's also the employer saying, I don't know how to reach people. Like, I'm, one person, I'm the HR, I'm the social media, I'm 8 different things, and I don't have time to really sit down and think, how am I going to reach a certain community? How am I going to reach newcomers? How am I going to bring them onto the team? So that's what the connector program also does, is it works from both sides to benefit both sides. Let's see, what else? Yeah, we work really well with businesses to make sure that we're looking at what their goals are as well. The connector program is not a job seeking program. It's not a program that's focused on getting a job for the newcomer, although sometimes that can be misconstrued. But it is about making sure that the employer also has access to great talent, also has the ability to meet people that can really bring so much to their business. And so it's helping both sides. So that's how it bridges the gap, is it works on both sides and makes sure that that match really is beneficial for both sides.
Great, thanks, Alida. So Kariem, I'll pass the same question on to you from your perspective with ERIEC.
Yes, I completely agree with what Alida just mentioned. The connector program plays a crucial role in bridging the gap between newcomers and employers by creating a platform for meaningful connections. So what happens is, through organized networking events and again, mentorship opportunities, a newcomer can establish a professional relationship with experienced individuals in the respective fields. And so the program facilitates the introduction, sharing of industry insights, and guidance on navigating the local job market. This proactive approach helps newcomers build a professional network and understand the workplace culture, which is, again, coming from a completely different culture or a new country, you need to understand. And of course, access opportunities that might be challenging to discover independently. And by connecting employers and mentors, newcomers gain valuable insights, which in turn enhances their employability skills and integration into the local workforce. So again, by having this opportunity to network and creating your own professional network in a new country is very important. And that's my case when it comes as a new immigrant to Canada. I was a connectee with ERIEC, and it did help greatly meet people in an industry-specific relationship. So I did gain valuable insights, and then later on, it did help me land this role. So again, I gained valuable insights from the previous connector coordinator. So yeah, I think this is my share. Hopefully it helps. Yeah.
Great, thanks, Kariem. And yeah, Glenys, if you could speak, because you're really starting from ground zero in Lloydminster with your program and have been doing some interesting things to use networking to get the ball rolling, as it were. So could you speak to that?
So good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for inviting me. So as Cheryl has indicated, the program in Lloydminster is fairly new. And like others who are working sort of in this role, the first thing we wanted to do was sort of let the community know that we actually had a program and we were able to assist. So we started with a couple of presentations to Rotary, because that's where a lot of our business people are. And there was a lot of interest in, the mentorship program. We formed a steering committee, which included a number of different individuals who would be able to assist newcomers to our community find work. Some of them actually potentially to start a business, but really to get them settled. When you move to a smaller community such as Lloydminster, they're not all the same supports that you would get if you moved into a city, and people can feel quite isolated because there aren't necessarily groups that are from sort of similar backgrounds that you could connect in with. So when we first started to talk about what we should do for the mentorship, we decided to hold a networking event. And because the Lloydminster Local Immigration Partnership had just done a needs assessment regarding services and what individuals who had immigrated and settled in our community said they needed to actually just get settled before they could even sort of start with that job search, we looked at those and we brought in professionals from those different areas. So we did have an HR consultant who was there to assist people with resume development, talk a little bit about job search skills, what they might expect with an interview. We had someone from the banking industry who could talk about, setting up bank accounts, the types of things you need to think about that. There certainly was interest through the needs assessment that people were wondering what they needed to do, if they needed to upgrade. We had someone who could talk about professional credentialing and how that worked as well. So we connected with the Gateway for Newcomers, which is an organization that will help individuals who have immigrated, and the Lloyd Local Immigration Partnership. And we put out posters, we did things on social media. And what was interesting is people came, and I have to tell you that our biggest hurdle was language. We had a number of people who really have no English language skills at all. So the people that were there to help with the mentorship, we became quite proficient in using Google Translator within our phones. And so we spent a lot of time on our phones translating back and forth. And through this, not only did they gain some knowledge around maybe some of the other skills that they were going to need, we were actually able to start connecting people to mentors, but we were also able to connect people to what I would say are on-site mentoring opportunities. So we have a number of people now who are actually going out into a workplace. They're actually able to work on their language skills within that workplace, and they're also able to start to learn what the work life would be like in Lloydminster, because that's even going to be a different culture than if you're in a city like Edmonton or Calgary. And as well, we actually were able to refer people for potential jobs. We've had a number of people who have gone through interview processes now, and we have had some successes with people actually obtaining jobs as well. So we did that event in the end of September, and then we also did another one the end of November. And we've actually had through that, and some of it, it's almost like speed mentoring. They're able to meet with people for a short period of time, get the information they need, and then we can move them on to sort of the next step. We've had 27 mentorship matches through those first two events. So we're looking at doing something similar in January, but similar to the Connect program, where this is going to be more employers coming to potentially meet, or people with different types of professional backgrounds that can assist with that. We're going to be sort of doing a meet and greet around that. But there is a secondary reason for doing that, and that's to give people an opportunity to practice their English language skills. Because at this point in time in Lloydminster, the funding is being used for English as a second language, and there is no formal programming. It'll start again now in the new year for people to actually work on their English skills. So part of the mentorship program is just getting them to the point so they're able to communicate. So that's the next thing that we're going to be looking at doing.
Great, thanks, Glenys. Yeah, like as you can see, lots of things on the ground, kind of all together, all at once. So awesome. You've each of you have spoken a little bit about the benefits that arise from connector events, but maybe, could you each talk from your context about what you see as benefits, specifically for newcomers, but also for the business or other folks you might bring to the connector event. So Alida, if you could kick us off.
Sure thing. So I think the beauty of, and I guess as a mentorship program, you're well aware of this, so that's good. But the beauty of the connector program, I think, is that it is a two-way street. So it's not a full giving of one person and they are the altruistic hero of the day. They are gaining as much from this relationship as a connectee is, or as a newcomer, or anyone else that is a connectee. So the connectors themselves, the business leader, the community member, gets to understand, gets to learn about new people, gets to learn different perspectives. They learn about new education systems. They learn about new skills that are coming through the program or into the industry. All these things that they may be unfamiliar with. They also get to expand their own network. So they get to learn or meet new people, but they also get to expand their network with their own, maybe Canadian counterparts in their industry. They also can, through this experience, because when they meet the connectee, they have to refer, or the idea is they refer that connectee to 3 other people. And so it actually helps them continue to strengthen and grow their networks because they're connecting this connectee onto other people, right? So they're constantly engaging with their own networks, and that's only helping them. They also may find, if they're looking for someone for their own business, or they're looking to hire, they might find that talent sitting right across from them for a coffee meeting, and that's something that a lot of our connectors really are excited about, is that, I could find the person that I'm looking for, and I don't have to look anymore, or I don't have to struggle to go through that whole process. And then going back to the altruistic part, they do feel like they're giving back. It gives you a pep in your step when you feel like you can actually, significantly help someone, as little or a lot as that can be. For newcomers, for the connectees, they get everything that you would assume, right? They're getting all of that information. They're growing their professional network. That's going to help them integrate into the circle of trust, or, those workforce areas that otherwise they may have felt, are not accessible to them. In, I would say, a Canadian context, those circles of trust are pretty strong and pretty hard to break into if you are not in them. And so having someone say, hey, look at this person, they're pretty awesome, you should meet them, have a chat with them, learn from them, that's a big thing. It can really open doors. Having someone talk about you in a room that you're not in can have a huge impact on your career. The newcomer also gets to sort of learn and see those unwritten rules, that Canadian culture in the workplace that they might not be familiar with. They get to ask questions about, what is my cover letter supposed to look like? Do I even need a cover letter? What do I do when I go in for an interview? All of these questions that, sometimes we still all struggle with, but it's that two-way street of that discussion and taking away that information that's so helpful for them. Actors in general in the connector space, they benefit from a more inclusive community. They benefit from more diverse perspectives in their businesses. They benefit from more innovative thinking that all of this inclusion and diversity is bringing. And that's been proven. I'm not just spouting that because it sounds good. There's research to back that up. I'm not going to cite it right now. And as I love this quote because it's one of our communities in Saskatchewan, but she said, any community that is more inclusive and welcoming is a community that I want to be in. And that's, at the end of the day, it makes a better community. It makes a stronger community. It makes somewhere that people want to live. So it's wide reaching.
Yeah, great. No, thanks, Alida. Great. Yeah, great to kind of learn from the view you have of sort of across all of the communities that are, making this like it's the sort of connection by connection, making each community a little more inclusive. So yeah, I appreciate that. Kariem, can you speak to this question of benefits?
Yes, thank you, Cheryl. So as Alida just mentioned, the program, again, like mentorship, or more specific, the connector program, it provided a multitude of benefits for all involved parties. So for the connectees or newcomers, well, we provide events, or the relationships that we provide, as they offer a chance to expand their professional network, gain industry-specific knowledge, and receive guidance on their career development. Some of the newcomers they want to have an alternative career, or maybe go into a different field, and having the connector program facilitates giving them the information and knowledge that will help them doing so. And for employers, it benefits them from the program acts as a diverse pool of talent. So the employers gain access to the diverse pool of talent provided. They gain access to skilled individuals who may contribute to their organizations. And of course, the stakeholders, such as community organizations and government bodies, they witness the positive impact of workforce diversity and integration. So overall, the program does contribute to the economic development of, I would say, locally to Edmonton. And the collaborative efforts fostered by the Connector program leads to more inclusive and vibrant community. And again, as Alida just mentioned, we do have the researches and the data provided. I think the latest research shows that Alberta has the highest number of people moving into Alberta from all the different communities. We had a welcoming program, and now they're trying to, we have a lot of people coming to Alberta right now. So hopefully it doesn't affect the housing market. So yes, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Kariem. Yeah, there's benefits, and then there's also some of the trends and realities, right, that we're grappling with across Canada. Glenys, yeah, can you speak to the kind of benefits you're seeing in your community?
So, I'll reiterate what our other two speakers have said. Those are absolutely the benefits we're seeing. So I'm going to be a little bit more holistic. And I think that really it's around relationship building. And so there's benefits for the individuals that are providing that mentorship service. And there's benefits for the people who are actually the mentees in regards to developing those relationships. So certainly there are areas in our community right now that need skilled workers or need people with some of those professional backgrounds. And so by building those relationships, maybe it's not someone in my field, but I know someone else. I guess that's one of the benefits of a small town. And people would probably laugh if I said Lloydminster is small, but we are a small town compared to Edmonton and Calgary and the larger centers. We know someone. And so by building those relationships, what comes from that is we make those connections, and those connections are really important. And it builds a sense of community. As I said, people can feel quite isolated because they're not all the services that you would see in a larger center. And so by building that sense of community and people start to feel like they belong, those relationships grow and those connections grow. And as mentioned, I mean, when we can fill positions and businesses or organizations continue that work, it certainly assists in that economic development landscape within our communities. So I think probably if I was going to sort of put it in the big sense, that's the benefits we've seen, that people are able to build relationships both ways. Those connections are being made, and we're actually able to start to build a sense of community for everyone that comes into our into our program.
No, thanks, Glenys. And if you know, when Alida kind of talked about like that circle of trust, like how are you seeing that on the ground in Lloydminster in terms of using that networking connective capacity to start to build that? Is that making a difference, would you say?
Well, absolutely, because I mean, my background is in healthcare, and so I'm very connected into the healthcare community. And so if I have someone who has settled in Lloydminster who has that background, if they're to go and apply for a job, I mean, people may not understand some of the intricacies because they've come from a different country and that type of thing. But if I make an initial call, which I do all the time, and say, hey, we have someone we think they might be suitable, would you even consider doing a job interview with them? It's much more likely. So that's one thing that we've been doing, is making those initial connections. And so because they're talking to someone they know, they're saying, okay, yeah, for sure. And then very willing to help in however they can. And even if the person isn't successful in getting that position, they've had an opportunity to send in their application, go through the interview process, and we will even do some debriefing afterwards. And so that, I think, is really how we've seen that work on the ground.
No, thanks. And you're sort of you know, I'm conscious of always when we're in community organizations that do a program like the Connector program, and we can't promise, you know, if you join the program, we can't promise you'll get a job. And of course, that's what you know, people really are seeking often when they enter it. So I'm curious about, you know, the perspective of the kind of workforce development outcomes, the career transition outcomes, as well as just actual job outcomes. Mm-hmm. In many ways, I wonder, is it just easier to see? I mean, Glenys, you're running a very intimate sort of within your community, so you actually get to see the follow through super mm-hmm. clearly, right? Because of that close up. But curious for Alida and then Kariem, you know, what are all of the outcomes that you see in this, if the line of sight to seeing someone do that connection event and you may not see them get a job, not because they don't get one, but because, you know, the nature of the event and the follow-up and that sort of thing.
So I'm going to take a little bit, I prepared an answer to this question, and I'm going to take a different tack and flip my answer and do something else, as to not steal Kariem's thunder, because I feel like I've stolen Kariem's thunder a couple of times. And so I'm going to completely do something else so that Kariem, I will let you answer that question. And so I will answer that question from sort of a national perspective of the idea that the Connector program, as it currently stands, is run from a variety of different organizations. So we have immigrant serving organizations, we have immigrant employment councils, we have a music industry association of all things. We have economic development organizations, we have multicultural centers, we have employment centers. They all run the Connector program. And I think the beauty of the program, especially around workforce development and economic outcomes, is that it's simple. It's simple, it's easy to implement, it's turnkey. We give you all of the resources, we give you everything that you need to run the program, and you get to adapt it to exactly what you want it to be as an organization, regardless of what your organization looks like. Chamber of Commerce, immigrant serving, doesn't matter. So across the country, it's very interesting as far as that question of, you know, what does it do for workforce development, for In Fredericton, when it's run out of an economic development organization, I would say it does wonders because they are developing those relationships with employers. They are workforce development officers and connector program coordinators. And so they know exactly who they're matching, and they're matching for the idea of let's get this person employed, let's keep them in Fredericton. Halifax is the same way. It is very much focused on how do we help our investors? How do we help the businesses find the people that we need so that they're not struggling anymore? But then you've got other organizations that are like, we want to create a community. And so we're going to use the connector program to make sure that people feel like they really belong in this place. And if they get a job out of that, bonus. But, you know, right now it's about making sure that they stay here because they want to stay here. Ultimately, you know, a job is just a job, is a job in Edmonton, is a job in Lethbridge, is a job in Thunder Bay. And so if you feel you are part of the community in Edmonton, in Lethbridge, in Thunder Bay, you're not going to be as apt to say, well, there's a job in Edmonton, I'm hoofing it from Thunder Bay to Edmonton, right? Because you feel like you belong there, you feel you're part of the community. And so in some cases, I guess long-winded answer, in some cases, it's about community building. In some cases, it is more about workforce development. But the beauty of the program is that it can be both. And each community focuses on something completely different, which opens Kariem's answer, which will now be different than mine.
Great. Yeah. Over to you, Kariem.
Well, thank you, Alida. So again, as Alida just mentioned, the program is instrumental in supporting career transitions and workforce development outcomes. So newcomers often face challenges in understanding local work culture, industry practices, and professional expectations. And again, the beauty of the Connector program is not just about making the connection, is making the newcomers feel welcomed and feel, you know, more welcome, like connected in the country. So what I personally do is usually try to help them when it comes to resumes, cover letters, sometimes mock interviews, and this helps build their, would say, sometimes they have all the skills necessary, but again, they don't have the courage. They might be just afraid. You know, it's a new country, new culture, and again, there is a huge, I'd say, taboo when it comes to the Canadian resume and the Canadian experience. So we try to bridge that gap by offering them the insights, the career insights, and the things they need to transition into the Canadian culture. So through the program, experienced individuals guide newcomers in overcoming those challenges, and by offering practical advice and insights. The Connector program facilitates those structured interaction, ensuring that connectees receive personalized support tailored to their career goals. So this personalized guidance contributes to smoother career transition. So if they're looking to move, for example, if they've been into banking, but I want to move into a different field, maybe I've been a teacher. We had a case where someone has been a teacher for 10 years, and then they want to move into banking. So it's a huge career transition, but again, their people skills are amazing. So that helps them just go into banking. The transition is easy. So this kind of guidance accelerates their professional growth and enhances the overall employability of newcomers. So again, the program strengthens the local workforce by integrating diverse talents and skills, fostering dynamic and adaptable professional community. So yeah, most of the time it's all about just breaking the ice between the international experiences, international qualification, and the Canadian experience. So hopefully we do help with that. And again, mentorship programs, the connector programs, they all help doing so. Thank you.
Cheryl, could I just comment?
Yeah, you bet.
Because I mean, and I don't think we're unique. So I'm just going to give you an example of something that I dealt with just before Christmas. For oftentimes when we're looking at people that are moving, it's a family. And so the work piece is important, but as Alida said, we want them to stay in our community. So just before Christmas, I got a call from the Swiss worker, which is they support students who have moved from out of country into the schools. And they're very concerned because two of their families were thinking about leaving. And of course, their concern was more from the students' perspective, because the students have got settled in the school, they're doing well, and they don't want to see this family up and move. But the problem is employment for mom and dad. And so we were able to assist, because I went and met with the parents. One was an engineer, but she'd had absolutely no luck breaking into that. So we were able to connect her with an engineering firm, which is now helping her get her appropriate, what does she need to do so she can get her professional certification, because they're looking for someone to work. And then we also had a teacher and a banker. And so we were able to make those connections. So I think that, our focus is ensuring that people, get employment, or somehow helping to that economic diversification in our community. But I think that from our perspective, we've really tried to be holistic about it. And so what does that mean for them as a family, and how can we help them settle? Because when I worked in health, and I did a lot of foreign worker recruitment, especially with physicians, one thing we learned is that when someone gets a job, they can often be with our physicians, once they started practicing, they were very happy. But the reason they would up and move was because either their partner or their kids were not happy, because they weren't getting integrated into the community as well. And so we've tried to sort of take that holistic view. Yes, let's help you with this, but what other things can we do as a community to ensure that your whole family feels like they fit? So I just wanted to throw that out there as well.
Yeah, and I mean, what I'm hearing, from all three of you is, the event of doing connections, of doing networking might, look or seem like to be a certain kind of activity, but it's nested in a bunch of different concerns. Like I do love that image. The circle of trust is like expanding and building who and how they're connected within their community, hopefully for that feeling of like that I can actually belong here, that I for myself, I talk about like it's warming up that first an awkward time, right, to feel like, okay, I've got connections, and there's people I can reach out to that when I need help. So you've talked already, Glenys, I think quite a bit about how you've used these elements to get your program, up and running and known, right? Because any new endeavor, and you've done several in Lloydminster over the years, it's getting people in the community aware that there's a thing now, right? And so is there anything you wanted to speak to that you haven't already about, what you're seeing, the kind of outcomes that are even at this early stage in your program's history, are starting for the community?
Well, as I've mentioned before, it's two ways. So people need work, but businesses and organizations need workers. So that's probably the biggest benefit. Mm-hmm. But I do think that, and I will say this, I'm born and raised here, so Lloydminster's pretty homogenous. So it's more difficult to break in at times. And so I think that it's assisting people that are coming, but it's also assisting people that live in Lloyd to understand that we have people that are newcomers to Canada who have fantastic skills that can actually really assist in building not just our economic base, but our culture and our community as well. And I think that's so important. But just another point is what we're finding too is people are getting jobs, but the jobs they're getting really aren't in their field, but that's okay to start out with. But one of the things that we have found, and this is why we're doing some of the job shadowing, is oftentimes they're getting jobs where they're not having to really connect and communicate. And as I said before, our biggest thing has been language. So when you get hired to do housekeeping in a hotel, you really are on your own for the whole day. And so, if they have a job, but we're sort of feeling like, what can we do to help build skills so they can get more into their field? That's where that job shadowing or on the job mentoring is really coming in for us. So we're able to get them, so they're having to have that interaction, learn more about a workplace that they could potentially use their skills in. And I think that's a really important part as well, is just that integration piece.
Great. Yeah, I mean, I really love that, because often we think, if they've gotten the job, okay, outcome achieved. And again, it reduces this much larger question of an actual career transition leading to, fuller settlement, greater satisfaction. I always think about like the road to prosperity, that years ago when the CEO of the World Skills Games came and basically said, after talking in like 80 countries, realized if people don't see a road to prosperity, they're much more likely to pick up a weapon, right? And so, how important to really continue to nurture the career pathway, rather than just sort of saying, well, you've got a job and you're able to pay your bills, so that's good enough, right? Appreciate very much everything that our folks on the panel have spoken to. I did want to open it up to questions if people have, or comments, wanting to share from your own program or community's perspective, or things that you wanted to ask our panelists. So please open that up. And I'll just note, yes, Guillermo, I see your question related to that. It's a little bit off topic of what we're talking about, but I see your email, so we can follow up in that way. Yeah, go ahead, Alida.
So one thing I just wanted to mention, especially with regards to the career transitions and getting jobs, whenever we count a job within the Connector program, or all the communities count jobs. Some don't, some do. But when they do, it is expected that it is a meaningful job. So it is a job that is appropriate with their experience and with their education. So if they're, like any of the jobs, so over our 10-year program, we've had over 3,500 jobs, I believe. And all of those are commensurate with their experience. So that's not somebody moving into a community and having to work in housekeeping or being an Uber driver or whatever. That is like, if they're in banking, they're in a finance role. If they're in IT, they're doing IT jobs. Yeah. So just making that clear.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, because that of course is like the jobs people actually want, right, to connect to. So that's awesome. Yeah, Doug, go ahead.
Yeah, this has been so great. It's like, this is information I know about, I've known for years, but I just love listening to the different perspectives and facets of this. And I wanted to make a couple comments on, Glenys had made reference to Lloydminster being sort of a homogeneous community, and I don't think that we need to see that as a fault, but I think or a deficit, or it is what it is. As Glenys knows, I spent a lot of time, and my family comes from the Lac La Biche area, which is kind of, yes, perhaps could be perceived as homogeneous, but it's actually quite diverse as well, with a lot of different communities present in a very small, region. And so it sort of made me think about the role of, let's say, a connector program, and I know how it functions here in Edmonton, that role that Glenys takes, that Kariem takes, when it comes to these positions. It's kind of like an interlocutor, an ambassador, a champion, a welcome wagon, if you will. Having that kind of a person that can bring you to the door and welcome you to the community and connect you to people in the community. All of a sudden, it's not so homogeneous, but it's it's a little bit, again, more welcoming. And Kariem and Glenys do a lot of work at being sort of, like sort of making those introductions so that you do feel like there's less of a barrier, and again, more of that sort of, I guess, that welcoming nature of the community. So yeah, I think one of the things that I love about this, because we do run a career mentorship program, which is a little bit more elaborate, and requires more time commitment for both the mentee and the mentor. It has its advantages, and certainly it's a lot more of a profound experience when it comes to the relational piece. But I'm just in awe of the Connector program and how, in a very short, like let's say one session, how you can sort of make a difference, make an impact, make a connection, and all of a sudden you're building some social capital within that one meeting. And so when we chose to go into the Connector program as an option, we just said, this is a nice alternative for, let's say, the employer community who said, like, love to be a mentor, but I just don't have the time right now. But we also look at the Connector program as being a bit of a gateway to the career mentorship program as well. So that's like, wow, that was a great experience I had with that mentee or that connectee. And what else do you guys have to offer? Like, that career mentorship program sounds very interesting, and I think I want more of that. I would like to be, sort of play a more profound role in helping people sort of integrate into Canada. So I just wanted to make those comments. Like I say, having one person as your advocate on the ground, whether it's Glenys on, in her program, or Kariem in Edmonton, and of course in Calgary, Bruce is on the line here too. The ERIEC also has, their Connector program. There's several, I think, and Alida, you can probably give me a little bit more of an accurate sort of number of that. But people are using this as a very, very viable tool.
No, thanks, Doug, for that. And Karleen, just before we jump to you, I see Mail's put in a comment from Airdrie, which, like, I love that you've included the communities growing too fast, right? That we're this reality that I think Kariem touched on, as we see a trend of people moving into the province, it means a reality in lots of centers for how do we receive and grow and continue to build community and connections in the workforce. So great, thanks for sharing, Mail, about the opportunities that you're seeing with the program and the positive change. So appreciate that very much. I hope your throat feels better soon. So glad we could communicate this way. And feel free, if you have questions for Mail, you could certainly text her and learn more, and she can respond. So Karleen, please.
Oh, my question was actually I think more for Glenys, because Lethbridge and Lloydminster, they're maybe similar populations. I'm wondering how, for your networking event, how you sold that to the employers and how you actually got them to come to that, because like, it's okay to say, this is a give and take relationship, and you're going to make your workplace more inclusive and all of that, but that's a lot of times doesn't fly with our population. So how did you actually get them in the door? How did you get them to buy into that?
So first off is when I started, like I said, I spoke to both our Rotary clubs. And I mean, yeah. I'm probably biased because I'm a Rotarian, but I think as Rotarians, one of our key things is, it's service before self, right? And so Rotarians are always looking at ways to get back to the community. So that was a really great group to talk to, and they certainly, and so I would then announce at the Rotary meetings, hey, we're having a mentorship event. Please feel free to come out. Then the other thing that I did is, when we had people register for the mentorship event, we asked specifically what information they thought they might be looking for, or if there was certain sectors that they were interested in. And then I actually made personal phone calls to people in those sectors and explained the program, told them what we were hoping to do, and asked them if they would be able to come and give a couple of hours of their time. And that's sort of how we did it. So we sort of targeted what information we thought the mentees that were going to attend needed to make sure that we had the right people at those events. And then follow up is the other thing that I've done as well to get people to come out to it.
Follow up like just before and
and after. So if we've
Okay.
made a mentorship match, so for example, we have one gentleman who was in investments and banking, and so then I ensured that I followed up with the banker that was there to make sure that they made that connection, and they were going to be able to have some more opportunity to chat and just follow up that way as well.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a Rotarian too, and I have spoken to our local club, and got some good matches out of that.
Yeah. So the other area I have, the other area, sort of depending, is like we have, so there's other service clubs as well, but of course, because we're oil and gas based, there's specifically an organization that looks at that, and that's an area right now that are looking for a lot of employees. So that's one of my other connections that I need to make as we move forward.
Okay.
Oh, and I should have said food was the other thing to get people out.
Yeah, quality eats, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Alida and Kariem, you had raised your hand. You know, feel free to go after Alida if you still want to comment.
I love that. I used to work in post-secondary education, and it was always like you needed pizza or students were not going to show up. And I'm so glad that that just continues through the rest of the life. Free pizza and people will show up. But also, Kariem, think about, so Rotary clubs are great for an individual, but also your Chamber of Commerce. Engaging with them, saying who's looking, like I can help you find the people that you need for the jobs that you want to fill. How can I be of service and how can we work together? Because there's tons of people, like small, medium enterprises do not have the time to put up an ad, to go through an ad, or the 300 applications they're going to get. So it can be really overwhelming. And if you propose that I'm here to help you with that, I have qualified talent that's going to help you fill the gaps that you are experiencing right now. It's something that, hopefully they'll see the light at the end of the tunnel and want to engage.
Thank you. That's great.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to exactly what Alida said. I was going to say that part, and then the next part is by showing the positive impact and the success of the program. So the first part would be, of course, explaining the program, what we're capable of doing and how we can assist them. And the second part would be to show the positive impact of the program and the results on the ground right now, like what we've been up to, what are the numbers, how the program is successful. That can actually attract new people.
Yeah, and stories too, right? Stories and numbers. Who's been successful?
Exactly. Yeah, stories and numbers. Usually we have, again, recorded videos of mentors and connectors who share their story about how they helped someone and the positive impact and how they loved the experience of helping people out.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Glenys.
So the Chamber of Commerce, they sit on our steering committee. And so they were very helpful in advertising the events as well. But one thing we're going to be trying with them is they are planning on hosting a job fair. And we're going to collaborate with them on that. And we're going to actually have individuals, this is the hope, there. And so we're going to invite people who have been, working in the as mentees looking for jobs. And we're going to pair them with someone to go through the job fair, to talk to people just so they have that support as they move through. So we're going to give that a go in the spring when they do their job fair, and sort of see how that works as well in regards to making some of those matches.
So Glenys, can you tell me who else is on your steering committee?
Yeah, so we have the Chamber of Commerce. We have Community Futures and our startup organization. We have the coordinator for international students through Lakeland College. We have the director for the Gateway for Newcomers. We have the director for Lloydminster Local Immigration Partnership. And then we have a young woman who was a newcomer to Lloydminster a few years ago, who is settled here. And so that's our steering committee.
Thank you.
Okay, so we had, technically blocked out a full 75 minutes just because I often find this community can have a lot to say or a lot of questions. What I do really appreciate, both the interest in this topic, but also, hearing that both like how the structure of the connector program and that kind of planned, like thoughtful networking piece has such positive, impacts for people. We've heard that from, Alida, we've heard it from Maïl in her community, and Kariem and Glenys, but also like how variable it can be, right? It's not a one size fits all, kind of tool. It can be crafted and shaped and textured to fit a particular audience or a particular time. And so we've wanted to, Doug and I think, bring forward sort of discussions like this, just so we can kind of open the box on what does mentoring look like? How does mentoring and networking, work together? I think we're interested in seeing very much in rural Alberta how the models evolve out of different, contexts and different audiences. So I've really appreciated this discussion. Doug, I'll just hand it over to you.
Yeah, thanks. I think that's the key thing about, and you've got some wise old sages here on the group, Bruce and I, just like we're very used to morphing, adapting, adopting. Like you get a model, and it's not just about like just sort of copy and paste. I think we've always prided ourselves, at least in the urban settings, that we're not going to adopt a larger like Vancouver or Toronto model and just sort of cut and paste and put it into the Edmonton context or the Calgary context. So we're very attuned with the needs of that local community. So, and that's what I'm hearing with what Glenys is saying, is that she's really attuned with what's going on, the reality. She has got a really honest perception of her community, and then how to address that and how to mitigate and navigate those problems of making connection, because ultimately it's about making connections, and that's why they call it Connector Program. It's about making connections to build social capital. It's about building connections so that you can requite your careers. It's about building connections so that you feel comfortable in that community where you've chosen to live. But I've got a bit of a question to all three, and this is a little bit about, this is great that we've heard what you've done and what you've accomplished. What are your dreams for tomorrow? Because we're all in this mindset these days of what we're planning for at least in some cases, if you're applying for monies with the federal government. What does 2025 look like? 2025 to 2030 look like? If you could, like, how are you going to build your connector program in Edmonton, in Lloydminster, or not? And I know it's not a connector program, but it is in some ways, and or like officially, I guess. And Alida too. What's in the future? What's getting you excited about the connector program for the future?
Are you asking me to share proprietary information for my proposal? I don't know how to take that. So you said something, Doug, that struck me. Is it okay, Glenys and Kariem, if I go first? I'm just butting in here. So you said something that made me think about one of the absolute favorite parts of my job. So I deal with all of the communities across Canada, and my favorite part is actually getting to engage with all of the connector coordinators, asking them questions, finding out what they're doing, being shocked and amazed at all of the wonderful things they're coming up with on the daily. But so in conjunction with that, one of my favorite things is connecting them. So it's not just about connecting newcomers in a community, it's about also connecting the different programs. And when somebody comes up with a new idea and says, hey, I'd like to try this, and I'm like, well, excellent, you should talk to this person who tried that last year or is doing that now. And so they're all different programs. They're all adapting to the model or the community that they're in, but they all get to learn from one another as well. And I think that shows the strength of the program. It shows the strength of the community itself, because they're all wanting to do the same thing for their community. They want to make their community a better place. And so sharing and that knowledge and learning from one another is one of the strengths of our program, and that's why I love what I do. But to answer Doug's question, with my proprietary information, one of the things we are hoping to do with this next iteration, so 2025 goal, would be to do a little bit more nationally focused activities. So far, we've done, I think, a good job of saying, okay, this community, you've got this going on, let's connect you, let's support you, let's develop resources for you, and do that 35 times over. But I think this next iteration, we'd love to bring the focus back a little bit nationally and say, okay, who do we have that has a national scope, big, little, medium sized? And let's get everyone involved and bring their connectees, their connectors, and have some sort of national conversations, national networking, national workshops, national things going on, so that we can have a little bit more of a community. We can have more of an IT community. We can have more of a banking community, more of an accounting community, and have people learn not only from where they're from, what's the banking sector like in Nova Scotia versus Edmonton, what's it like in Canada versus Nigeria or India or Japan? And so have that learning on a bigger scale, and have that sort of knowledge sharing and just a larger scope. So that's one of the special things, and I'll leave it at that.
So yes, my vision for 2025. First, we had a discussion before that if we have more marketing budget from the National Connector Program, and we did discuss it, yes, we're going to have that. So it's more about marketing the program a bit more. And that's not to say that we have a shortage of connectees. We have a lot of connectees on board. Again, by joining different community activities, we onboard a lot of connectees. But I think it's about to show the success of the program, sharing the success stories in a broader kind of fashion. That's the first point. The second point that I envision for the Connector Program is to be not just making the professional connection between the connectee and the connector, but to create a professional network of connectees among each other. So we do have, for example, engineers who come to Canada. They want to start their licensing journey. So we can connect that connectee with someone who's already like halfway through the journey, or maybe already have their licensing done, and they can help each other. And then they can feel like, I'm not alone. I am not isolated. I belong. I love that community that I live in. So I'm having a pilot right now for something called International Cafe. We're still working on it, but again, with weather conditions, I think it's more favorable to be towards summer than to be in winter. Asking newcomers to meet at a place during the snow isn't great. I mean, from my perspective, I wouldn't go in such a cold weather. So I would wait until it's summer, it's sunny, the weather is nice, and then we can initiate that. But I think that's something that I would love to see in 2025.
So I probably have a short term and a long term. So, I mean, short term, by 2025, I hope that the program will be well established and that there will be another organization, because I mean, we're a pilot, that will take the mentorship program on, and we will have built a structure for them that works for them. My long-term goal, and maybe this is a bit pie in the sky, but I tend to be that way, is that mentorship just becomes organic within our community. And so when I see that new person move into my neighborhood and I recognize that they're, you know, not from this area and maybe not from Canada, I automatically understand that they probably are going to need some help to understand our community, understand some of the idiosyncrasies of living in a new country, and also may need help connecting in for employment and that type of thing. So that would be my long-term goal, that we're creating change and we're going to create a change in the culture, the way people think around how we work together and build that community.
Yeah, I wanted to add to what Glenys just mentioned. Again, coming from an international perspective, the difference in culture means most of the newcomers do not understand what mentorship is or what a connector program is. So I think the first obstacle is getting that kind of idea to them, like what's possible. I'm again grateful and lucky that I've gained that kind of insights through the different places that I've been and different culture. Living in the United Kingdom for about 5 years gave me that kind of idea. But again, someone coming from, let's say, Egypt, coming from Libya, coming from India, straight to Canada, they have no idea what mentorship is. They have no idea what the connector program is. And I'm not saying all of them, some wouldn't have any idea. So it's all about just making them understand the program. And that's what the marketing money is for. So, yeah.
Great. Well, I see we're sort of wrapping up to our time. I want to thank very much Alida and Kariem and Glenys for being generous to share their experience and their works in progress. You know, that we very much have tried through these forums not just to provide, you know, experts and expertises, but the sort of like the work on the ground that's happening. Because, you know, as we saw in the exchange between Karleen and Glenys, like so many people are working their particular challenge, or, you know, I can't find mentors, I can't find mentees, like whatever that is. And it's been really helpful, I think, to have these kinds of spaces where we can just talk honestly about what those things are and what's working and what the next plans are, so that we can continue this kind of professional conversation about how to run these programs, how to grow them, and how to keep them connected to the community needs. It feels really important. All of the statistics I'm reading now about what the kind of immigration, both to Canada and the province, is looking like, and just the general labor workforce. We're definitely, you know, going to be integrating more internationally trained folks, because that's what we need to do to keep work going in our province and our country. So appreciate you know, your time for this. You know, I guess last call for any questions or comments. I'm seeing some great compliments coming from Corby, thank you, and Bruce, thank you, in the chat. So feel free to take a look at that. As always, we record these sessions. We will have them in short order up on the AMP website and the AMP YouTube channel. And we'll follow up with everyone who's registered to let them know when that recording's available, so you can revisit or share with colleagues. So thanks so much. Doug, did you have anything you wanted to say, or Bruce, as close up?
No, Bruce, go ahead. Or like, I'm just, again, very thankful that we have this opportunity to have this community practice where we get to share information, nuances about a concept, different facets, different angles on it. That's the beauty of it. I think a lot of these kinds of initiatives is that I think we have to get ourselves out of the mindset that there's these sort of solid templates that we have to implement or look at. It really is incumbent upon us to sort of listen and look at your environment and then design something using those templates, and then modifying, morphing, and not being afraid to do that, because ultimately, we're trying to lift somebody up, and we're also trying to anchor them into communities. So if we've got a template that we use that's not a good fit, we may lose those people in our community. So it's like, not to be afraid to design it to meet the needs, and use your peers that are out there in your communities, your advisory committees. That's what they're there for, is like bouncing ideas off. And that's how CRIAC and ERIEC evolved, was sort of always constantly having those conversations. And in Kariem, your idea of having coffee chats, well, that comes from Bruce and his, I don't know how many coffees he's had in the history of mentorship in his life, but that's so that is how you build these things, is having conversations about it and then taking action.
Great. Well, thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your day. And as Annette, we'll have something up, by the end of the month for sure, early February at the latest. So thank you so much, and take good care.